When it comes to porting games to the console, it's a fine line. If you just directly port a PC game without considering the controls or gameplay, you can make it a borderline unplayable experience. But if done right, sometimes being able to sit back on a couch with a controller can make it all worth it. However, there's one genre that absolutely struggles on console, and that's real-time strategy games. So this leads me to today's review, Iron Harvest Console Edition. So for anyone who has no idea what I'm talking about, I'll split this video up to two sections. So the first, I'll talk about Iron Harvest in general, about the game and the new modes they've added since launch. The second half, I'll focus on the console and gameplay. So let's jump into it. Iron Harvest is a real-time strategy game set in an alternative history World War I. In this steampunk and Tesla-inspired world, you command armies of giant mechs and troops. The base game lets you play as three factions: the Republic of Polania, Saxony Empire, Rosviets. It's also the fourth DLC faction of Usonia. For all you RTS fans, this is important to note. This isn't your Age of Empires type of strategy game. If you've played Company of Heroes, you will immediately be familiar with this style of game. So what do I mean exactly by this? Well, you only have 3 buildings in your base, and you're limited to building a handful of defenses on the map, like sandbags and bunkers. So instead of massive armies and bases, the game is a squad-based strategy game, where your units and abilities play a major focus. So instead of focusing your attention on building giant bases, you'll instead be focusing on your individual unit placement, making sure they're behind environmental cover. In Iron Harvest, the survivability of each unit is important. You need to make sure you retreat units out of bad situations so they can heal. The game reinforces this mechanic through having a low unit pop count and forcing you to gain resources by capturing points throughout the map. Most of the time playing, you'll be concentrating on smaller squad battles and making sure that you're capturing the strategic resources on the map that you need to build more troops with. While you won't have giant armies, the pop cap isn't too small. Speaking of units, the mechs and troops of each faction look different and unique. It never gets old to see infantry fighting, then a mech walk in to join the fight. This is an area where the game gets so right. Its overall aesthetic makes the game worth the experience. They've truly pulled off the world building. The alternative history World War I is a setting you rarely see in the genre. It gives the game a strong point of difference to stand out, but the gameplay and setting aside, you're probably wondering, what can you actually do in this game? So the single player and co-op modes of Iron Harvest are where the game shines. The campaign opens with World War I footage, but with mechs edited in. It's one of the best parts of the game. It sets the tone for what's about to happen. In saying that, I only really see this at the start of the game. I really wish they added it more throughout the story. However, during the campaign, every mission features voice acting and story cutscenes. Also, the campaign is one overarching main story they'll have you play as each faction. Now, when it comes to the campaign missions, they can all be played co-op online. But a word of warning, the story has a lot of missions that do not feature bases and unit production. Instead, they focus on a single hero character running around the map and doing objectives. Other than story, the game does have the traditional real-time strategy skirmish mode, where you choose a map, settings, and you can play against AI in 1v1, 2v2, or 3v3. But where the major replayability of the game comes in is the map campaign mode and challenges. So the challenge mode lets you play 4 different scenarios with bonus objectives. Think of it like a horde defense mode. The other big mode added to Iron Harvest after launch is the new world map campaign. So this mode lets you pick a faction and scenario and play it out in a Total War/Risk turn-based map. Like in Total War, you'll have your leader and move around the map attacking other teams and taking territory. Each area is a mission where you bring in your reserves and you can have battle to take it. You can even auto-resolve missions. All these single-player and co-op modes are important because the online multiplayer of the game isn't active. So unless you have a group of friends, you'll find it hard to find a match. This is especially true for the console version. Speaking of which, like I was mentioning before, it can be a fine balancing act trying to make a strategy game for the console. Iron Harvest, to overcome some of its issues, adopted hotkeys and multiple UI wheel systems to help you make quick commands. Here's some examples. To help you get over some of the challenge of the controller, there are multiple ways you can select units. So you can select units by hovering over them and clicking them. You can use your back bumpers to go through the unit list at the bottom. You can hold a button in to select all units on your screen, or you can even just select all units you own. So for a new player, it definitely can be daunting. However, it does get easier with time. The other ways to try to make management easier is by using a left trigger to move around the map faster, pressing R3 to move your screen and focus on one unit. You can also quickly pop up a UI wheel that has your buildings on it, so you can train troops from anywhere on the map. So all of these little control choices are important to note because the game focuses on squad combat, which means you're constantly micromanaging different units to take multiple resource points around the map at the same time. This is probably one of the biggest challenges of Iron Harvest being a PC port. While they had done a great job to try and adopt the controllers to console, it didn't feel like an intuitive console-based experience. When trying to get troops behind cover, you'll sometimes be wondering why didn't it select properly, or why troops can't go to certain areas even though they look available. Even in some battles, pacing can feel off. In saying this, I enjoyed my time playing Iron Harvest on console. When it comes to strategy games on console, it does a great job. It has a unique premise, a solid campaign, and enough varied content to be worth the purchase. However, There were moments when I felt like game was a port and not designed bottom up for console. The constant using abilities and micromanaging at times didn't feel like it related seamlessly. And this really comes down to the controls at times feeling unintuitive. In saying this, overall, for a first attempt at the genre, they've done an awesome job. The game's setting and story is worth trying for RTS fans. It's an enjoyable experience playing the game. If you're looking for an RTS like Company of Heroes on console or a strategy game with replayability and co-op, it's easy to recommend Iron Harvest. For its unique setting, it's really a worthwhile game. I just ask they give us more edited mech footage in the next one. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to check out my new console RTS playlist, or if you're looking for games you can finish in about under 15 hours, the Weekend Warrior playlist, please check it out. Subscribe, and thank you for listening.